Hello, this is Luke from the Lake Superior College CIS department. I will be going over the minimum you need to know to set up FreeNAS to provide iSCSI storage for VMware's ESXi server, their Type 1 hypervisor. Please note that I said that this is the minimum you need to do to set this up. One of the things we've stripped out to make this more streamlined and straightforward is security. Do not deploy this configuration to a production network. With that, let's get going. I have FreeNAS set up here and I've connected to it via a web browser. I also have VMware's vSphere client connected to my ESXi server. I will start with FreeNAS to set up the iSCSI targets. In FreeNAS, in this most recent version, you do everything through this sidebar. We'll go to Services and iSCSI. Well, almost everything through this sidebar. Before we start playing with the iSCSI service, we have to turn it on, which means going to Services up here, going to iSCSI, and clicking this switch to turn it on. Okay, the first thing we need to add, we're going to add 3 basic components, and then we're going to do 2 more steps to hook them together. The first component we are going to add is a portal. So under iSCSI, under Services, we will go to Portals, expand that, and click Add Portal. I'm going to add a comment just to name it for my own future reference. And I am going to select the IP address of my server here. A portal you can think of as a service or a daemon that is listening on this IP. This sets up which IP and which port your iSCSI service will listen for connections on. The port we will leave as the default 3260 for iSCSI and click OK. That's all we need to do to add a portal. The next basic building block that we're going to add is an initiator. So minimize portals, expand initiators, add initiator. And we're actually not going to change anything here except to, again, give it a description so that we can tell which one we want later on. And what an initiator does in iSCSI, well, this is a place where FreeNAS's terminology is a bit confusing. In iSCSI, an initiator is basically a client. An initiator is a piece of software or hardware, I suppose, which connects to your iSCSI server and uses the storage service that your server provides. In FreeNAS, initiator is instead sort of in this place, initiator is sort of a filter of initiators. It tells you which initiators are allowed to connect to your server. In this case, I said we stripped out the security. We're just accepting anyone. All host names, all IP addresses, but you could, for example, replace the all down here with your local network, and then only initiators from that network could connect to your server. We'll just click OK and accept the defaults and move on to the third basic building block. The third basic building block is an extent. So expand extents, add extent, and what an extent is storage that your iSCSI server will be serving up. I'm just going to name it something for my reference. And there are 2 types of extents that you can serve up. A file type extent uses a file on the file system of your FreeNAS box to hold the storage that is served to your clients or initiators. I'm going to switch to the device version, which isn't necessarily recommended, but it's a little bit easier for just a demo setup. My free hard drive is already selected. Remember that you do need a second hard drive besides the one that your operating system is installed on when you're using FreeNAS. And I don't think I need to name this. Now we have an extent which will provide storage to our clients. So we have a service, or we have a portal, an initiator, and an extent ready to go. Now we need to join them together. and the thing we join them together with is a target. And if you've done much reading about iSCSI, you will have heard of targets already. They are what an initiator connects to get storage. So expand targets, add target. This is where you'll see it all starting to come together. So I'm just going to give it a generic name again. And something to note is that it does tell you base name will be appended automatically when starting without IQN. What they're telling you is that, at least according to RFC 3890, there's a specific format that iSCSI target names should take. And to make it easy on you, unless you specifically put your name in that format, which starts with IQN, FreeNAS will kind of make up a default one for you. But it does give you the ability to specify an alias which doesn't have all of that extra stuff automatically added on. So when I'm setting these up, I just copy my target name into my alias name, and then I know I'll always be able to find it by what I entered the first time. I'll set it to read write, and again, here's where stuff starts coming together. We created a portal to provide the target with somewhere to listen on for connections. We set up an initiator to tell it which connections to accept. But you don't see the third part here. The target, or the extent that we set up the storage, that comes in the next step. So we select that portal and the initiator that we set up previously and leave all the other settings default, and we now have a target. The only problem is that target doesn't have any storage to serve up. Final piece of the puzzle here is this target/extent, which adds a mapping between a target and an extent. So add one of these, and all this does is we say, here's the target we made, here's the extent we made, this is what the target gets to serve up for storage. And that's all you need to do on the FreeNAS side to get iSCSI up and running. Let's switch over to ESXi. Okay, in ESXi we have a fresh new server here. That's saying no persistent storage. That's just because I haven't formatted the local hard drive yet. I don't really need to though, because I'm adding network storage. So make sure I've got the local server selected in the left-hand bar in vSphere Client. Go to the Configuration tab, down to Storage Adapters, and click on that. You see we've got a block SCSI, SCSI adapter, but nothing for connecting to iSCSI targets. So we're going to go to add a software iSCSI adapter, and click OK. And yeah, just some notes about their default configuration. And we have a new storage adapter. However, it's not set up yet, so you need to right-click on it, go to Properties, go to Network Configuration, and tell it what storage adapter it should listen on. And this seems kind of obvious. You've just got one on your lab computer, right? But most servers are going to have 4, 6, 8 storage adapters, and a couple of them are probably going to be dedicated to only storage traffic. So it is important to be able to select which adapters this traffic goes over, because it is very performance critical and often it is very high volume. But we'll just select what we have for now, hit OK, and we now have an adapter to work with. Now we'll go to the Dynamic Discovery tab and add the server that we made, or we will add our FreeNAS server here. So I will add the IP of mine. You will already know the IP of yours because that is the IP you use to connect to the web interface, most likely. Port we left at default, and if you had set up security, you would click this chat button to authenticate to your iSCSI server. But we stripped that out, like I said, so just hit OK and close. And it says it wants to rescan it to make sure it still knows what's going on. That's fine. You see this task was in progress. It is now completed. So we can go back in this hardware menu, back up to storage. And there's nothing in here right now, but we can add it. So we'll leave disk/LUN selected. go and grab the FreeBSD iSCSI disk, and if you expand the path ID here, drag it over a little bit, sure enough, you see it's got vert target, which is the name I set up for the target, added onto the end of it. The rest of this is the rest of the path ID for the target that FreeNAS automatically generated to make it a valid name. And you can accept the defaults for the rest of these. Click Next. Oh, and you do have to enter a name for it. It's only for your own reference, though. And yeah, go ahead and make it the full size possible. And it will take a minute to create the device. And down at the bottom, you can monitor the progress of the task here. Still in progress, it says. And now it has completed, and you have a fully functioning iSCSI storage device. Data store is what they're called in ESXi, and that is how you add FreeNAS provided iSCSI storage to an ESXi server.